I started my career as a promoter back in Melbourne 2001, and we'd promote anything. We would promote DVD vending machines, we'd promote natural latex mattresses, trying to tap into like the baby boomer sort of revolution, and then we promoted a property investor. And what we found is that it was much easier and it was much cheaper to get the attention of the market promoting a person than it was trying to promote a product or a brand or something like of that nature. And so very quickly we became a promoter of people, but we were a small business, so we couldn't promote the big guns that were already the key people of influence. So we literally started going through classifieds and newspapers looking for people that were promoting themselves really badly, right? And they didn't have that positioning, they didn't have that cut through. We'd go down their rabbit hole, we'd determine that they really had some great value to offer. They were just so they were great at the back end delivery of value. Clients loved them, raging fans, but they couldn't do it on the front end. We would approach them and say, we will produce you, we'll market you, we'll promote you, we'll build a stage essentially and a platform for you. And that was our point of difference. And we would go in, and usually anyone that's great on the back end of delivery hasn't put a lot of time into their communication or refining their pitch. Certainly back then and even now, a lot of people aren't putting out anywhere near as much kind of content on the front end or thought leadership. They're often selling their time. And so we'd have to kind of go through and change all these things and improve all these things for our speakers. Now, we didn't value that. We were giving that away for free as a means to an end to make this person sort of promotable. But that made the difference for us. It allowed us to access a market that we otherwise couldn't work with and build them into something. And so we kind of grew from zero to, we're doing 10 million in revenue in year 3. We're doing 150 events around Australia. We expanded to the UK, multi-stage, 2,000 people in major auditoriums. So we were running a fairly big business. We're 24, 25, didn't know what the hell we were doing, making shit up, but kind of putting it together. And then we blew up. Right? We got too big. We had too many management layers. There was too much chaos going on. We weren't managing our relationships properly, and the whole thing kind of fell over. Then we built it up again. As the internet started allowing small business owners to have more impact, have more reach, it simultaneously created more competition than ever, right? Everyone's kind of got that concept that there are alternatives for what you do, and we're competing against that, whether it's people, whether it's technology. And we would have people coming to us saying, how can you help us get the kind of cut through that you're getting for our speakers? And so that's when we launched a course. It was a very simple course. It was called the Expert Academy. This was before Key Person of Influence. And it was just helping people with their pitch, helping people kind of cross that threshold of being able to publish some content and make the most of this kind of media world that we live in. We helped them productize, so they had layers of product that they could sell. We helped them raise their profile, specifically online and in the media. And we helped them then establish, with all that value they created, we helped them create partnerships. And the results were crazy, right? And the thing was, we needed to work with someone that was already good at what they do. They had to be having raving fans on the back end. So this was no good for newbies, it was no good for startups, it was no good for apprentices, but someone that had been doing what they did for 5 years came in and started working on those 5 things. We'd see fitness trainers going from $75,000 a year to $750,000 a year in 6 or 7 months. Like bang, like talk about a 10x growth really, really quickly without them having to learn anything new. And so one of the things that we kind of stand against now is learning. Like yes, lifelong learning, yes, but most people are out trying to learn more stuff, thinking that there's something missing in them that they need to learn to get to that next breakthrough level of success. And in everything I've experienced in my business, that's not the case. In everything I've experienced in business, the one big thing, the thing that would make the biggest breakthrough in your business is showing up on the front end as the go-to person in your industry. You get that positioning right, where you're top of mind in not 10 or 20 people, but 200 or 2,000 people or more, that would do more to transform your business than building better systems or better processes or hiring that manager or redoing your website's brand or logo or business cards or stationery or any other stuff these people we get stuck into thinking that's biz dev. And so we kind of had this insight and we ran this course, we got all this success from our clients, and that's where our business pivoted. We didn't know what the word pivot meant back then. It was yet to become cool. But we changed from just promoting an individual speaker to going, actually, we want to really accelerate the entrepreneur revolution too many small business owners don't get the front end. They don't know how to package themselves. They don't know how to position themselves. They often, like, the word personal brand feels icky. It feels like becoming a shameless self-promoter. It means putting your vision, your values, your value proposition out there in the market. That's scary. What if people reject me? So there are so many inner world uncomfortable reasons to avoid it and to work on systems or processes or what have you. And so we find people just go down the wrong rabbit hole and they stay stuck spending all this money on stuff that doesn't work. And they hire marketing experts and funnel hackers and brand experts, and they spend all this money on all this stuff hoping that's going to create the shift, and they feel particularly underwhelmed with the results they get out of all the stuff that they're pouring money into trying to build their business. We started running this program. It worked really well. I was on a sabbatical. I went on a sabbatical for about 2 years to Bali, lifestyle design, surfing, yoga. Dan wrote the book. I launched a tech company, which I then sold from Bali just because I thought that would be cool. So leveraging Facebook, we grew them from 0 to almost 2 million followers, which was a big deal back then. Sold the company that did that. I was super inspired by a lot of what was coming out of Silicon Valley in the tech world, right? So there are these incubators like this joint, right? Where it's a place that brings clever minds together, but gives them access to all the resources they need to take off. And your Airbnbs, your Dropboxes, all these companies came out of the Y Combinators, the 500 startups. And I was like jealous because I didn't have a tech company. I had a service business, right? A traditional service. We're advisors, right? We're an advisory company packaged up as a training company, which didn't qualify to get into Y Combinator or 500 startups. And what we saw was a gap. And we saw that on one end, you could get a business coach to come and help you. But the problem with a business coach helping you become a key person of influence is that if they are, in fact, a successful key person of influence, not just with a lot of likes, but they've actually got the commercial infrastructure and the business behind them, you can't afford to work with them if you're in, doing less than a couple of million revenue. On the other end of the spectrum, you could go to a Tony Robbins conference with another 5,000 people, and that's great. I love Robbins, but that has its downsides as well. So we thought, how do we turn this program, which was just a course at the time, into an actual accelerator, an incubator for your traditional service businesses that create like a high performance environment for taking people that have already mastered the back end. They've got a good product, a good service, a good business, good traction. They're not in startup, they're running, solving problems. How do we help them put them into an environment that lets them build out that front end? Because it's not a one funnel wonder. Anyone trying to tell you that a funnel is going to fix your business problem is trying to sell you something. And they are, a lot of them. We use funnels and they work really well. But funnels don't work unless you're showing up as that go-to person in your industry. Until you're the key person of influence, redoing your website doesn't work. Doing funnels doesn't work. Hiring marketing people don't work because they're trying to perfume something that isn't showing up right yet. They're trying to perfume a pig. And so the idea is everything in business gets easier as you start showing up as this key person of influence. It's cheaper to attract clients. You're able to charge a higher price. You're able to close in a shorter amount of time. You're way more credible. It's easier and cheaper to attract team. It's easier and cheaper to attract partners. It's easier and cheaper to attract media. It's easier to maintain those. And so we started running these programs, giving people access to mentoring and one-to-one and accountability layers and all this feedback, online courses, but live workshops. 80% of what we do is kind of face-to-face, getting inside people's businesses and shaking it apart and rebuilding it. And that's what we found was the missing piece. It wasn't a guru, so I'm not a guru. My business partner's not a guru. I think business is more complicated these days. It goes far beyond any one person being able to give you the answer or the answers. One person might be able to give you like a specialized, I can help you with net promoter score or something, but the full business experience requires an environment more than it does a guru. And so we built that environment. Our accelerator runs for 12 months. We put people through that kind of gauntlet of putting them under the pressure, that perturbation of going, what is it you stand for? What is the vision, values, and value proposition? And how do we package that on the front end to give you that cut through? So it goes for 12 months. We've now run 97 of those globally. So the US, Singapore, Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, the US in Florida. We've just launched in Toronto and we're scaling that up now as well, with 3,000 alumni have now graduated. 800 of those are authors. They are the speakers, the commentators, the influencers. And so I kind of get to see being at the center of this ecosystem of like super highly influential people and the journey that it takes to go from them being quite obscure with this frustrated ambition going, I'm good at what I do, I'm solving customers' problems, why are we not getting more cut through here? Why is this still so freaking hard? To within 12 to 18 months, sometimes 2 years, a radical transformation in their positioning, whether they're an introvert or an extrovert, whether they love being on camera or whether they prefer sort of being behind the scenes. Like, influence is personality agnostic, and we just see some of the most remarkable transformations, not just in people's businesses, but in their lives, because all of a sudden they've got a platform and a message that's giving them what they actually got into business in the first place to do, which is to serve people and to help people. And so that's kind of what we've been doing. I'm really, like, I'm a business geek. I love it. I'm usually not particularly creative. I see what our clients are doing, what we're doing, what's working, what's not working, and we kind of collaborate as this global kind of group, not just do good business, but our company's called Dent, to make a dent in the universe. And I believe it's the role of every entrepreneur, not just to create more for themselves, but to find meaningful ways to contribute as well. So we support many organizations, but the primary is the UN Global Goals for Sustainable Development, which is essentially a to-do list for the planet. It's been ratified by 197 member states of the UN. The prime mission that we have is to build businesses as a force for good. So helping businesses not just get really good at building their own business, but by working out how to embed effective giving and service and contribution into their business, not just serving themselves and their own mission and purpose, but also their team, because now their team are able to show up to something that's beyond just making money. And also then, just as a result of these businesses doing good business, they make a real impact in the lives of people they'll never meet, which kind of brings our purpose kind of back to its core and back to its heart. And so what I'd love to do is maybe just open up to you guys and get a bit of a sense of, what kind of business that are you in? If you've in any way got the experience that you're delivering great value on the back end, but you're struggling to get that cut through, to get that positioning on the front end, or the flip side around productization, you've actually got a lot of front end capacity, you've got a lot of front end cut through, but you're struggling to scale because you're selling time or it's too much of a service business and it's kind of chaotic. I can kind of talk to both those angles. You need to give people good materials to work with, and unfortunately, just being good at what you do is often not good enough a material for marketing and PR companies to work with first. An example is a client of ours, Kate Chalice. She was just on the cover of Vogue, living her home. She's an interior designer, struggling to get cut through, similar, like different but similar. And all of a sudden, she's working with the big deals that are doing like 5-10 million renovations on their homes. So just bang, just with that. And what did it for her was understanding where influence comes from. And the mistake I think people make is they chase the front cover. The mechanism is always just value. It's just how do you give value? Because can I have a show of hands, who is doing well from referrals, right? Most people that have got a good product or service, you do well from referrals. And if you're not doing well from referrals, that's something to really look at. Because if you're doing good value, you should be doing it well enough that people are going to refer you. So one of the criteria that we would have to work with someone is, are they getting good referrals? Because that's a good sign that they're doing good work. Referrals only works to a certain scale though, right? You can only get so much growth and scale out of referrals. Eventually it has diminishing returns. But you've got to think about what is it that you're doing for them that delivers value. But the key here is to recognize that that value does not translate to value on the front end for prospects. Which is why you can say, look, these are all the people we've worked with, but that doesn't create the flood of people going, oh, well, I'm going to work with you then. Right? Otherwise, just putting who we work with on our website would make all the difference, and it just doesn't. It doesn't work. So we've got to work out, okay, we're in the business of delivering value on the back end to our clients. How do we deliver value to prospects, to our audience, to the market at large and at scale in a way that doesn't require our time? Right? And this is where we start getting into the game of thought leadership. This is where we start getting into the game of content. But most people are just putting out noise for content. And the world needs more noisy content like it needs a hole in the head. But not just that, Facebook, LinkedIn, they have incredibly powerful algorithms to go, is the stuff you're putting out any good? If it's not, it kills it dead, right? So there's no point trying to play this game without doing it well. So what I would encourage you to think about is, what are the gaps in people's thinking, right? What are the misunderstandings? What are the mistakes? What are the misconceptions that they're getting wrong that's causing them to waste money, to waste time, to end up with the wrong product, frustrating reworks, etc., etc., etc. Because wrong thinking leads to wrong action. And if you can help correct someone's thinking, give them an insight, give them a light bulb moment, give them an epiphany, aha, oh, that's why that's happening. That's why I'm experiencing that. Is that valuable? Has anyone had an aha moment by watching someone on YouTube or reading their book where you've gone, oh, facepalm moment? The moment someone gives you that light bulb moment, what happens to your esteem for them? What happens to your level of trust? Because they're not just out making noise, they've actually helped you, they've actually served you. The problem with this concept of like becoming a key person of influence is people think it's a veneer, they think it's a personal brand. The best way for Mercedes to communicate the power of their brand is to have people driving around in the car looking at the star all day, right? Which implies that they've sold the freaking product, right? The best way to build brand is to actually get into someone's lives and help them, right? So if you imagine you've got a payment gateway where once people have paid money, you're really good at delivering value on the back end, and that's where businesses start. We're the beginning of getting on the front cover of the magazine, becoming a key person of influence, standing out as that go-to person. It comes with the intention to go, how do we start giving value and serving people on the front end? People that we may never meet, people that we may never hear from, how do we serve them? And how do we serve them in the format they want to consume? So who's switched, show of hands, who's switched from reading books to listening to books in the last 5 years? Can I just have a show of hands? Right, it's less than normal. Right? I think some of you just aren't putting your hands up, right? But my consumption of books has gone from 1 a month to 1 or 2 a week because I can just listen to it in the car or on the way. I don't need to remember the book, it's always on me, etc. So that's for me, and for about a third of you, that's a preference. So you want to think about, once you get clear on what are some of these ideas that you can help people with, then make it available for them in content they can watch, they can read, they can listen to, or some stuff that they can maybe do. They can download, they can do some work, they can have some templates that they can use to interact with their team to get more clarity, etc. It's unlikely that anyone in here actually has a product or service that is going to cause true industry disruption, like an Uber or a Facebook or a Google or something like that, like true industry disruption. Everyone likes to pretend that they've got a disruptive business, but really they don't. They've got an improvement business. Where we can disrupt though, our industry is on the front end, on the marketing side, and we can disrupt through ideas. Because if you can be the one to build an audience of people that really resonate with your ideas, what's the likelihood that when the time comes that they want or need your product or service, that they're going to go with someone else? Very small. So by simply giving value and sharing your insights and ideas and experience at scale, by doing that, you make the competition irrelevant. Uber made the competition irrelevant by innovating a product that was 10x better than anybody else in the industry. It is unlikely that you're actually creating a product that's 10x better than anybody else in your industry. But you can make your content and your message 10, 20, 30 times better than your competition easily, because I promise you not many designers are out there playing this game well. How much do you have to give away before you get an order in return? I'm going to encourage you to not think about it like that. If you're going into this with I'm only going to give to get something in return, the spirit of intent is wrong to start. So when I started getting into content, it was just, how can I help you? And I don't care if we never meet. I don't care if we never meet, I don't care if we never interact. And for me, that allowed me to disconnect from my sales and marketing brain. Because the moment you're trying to create content in the hope that someone's going to come to you, you're going to sound selly, you're going to sound spammy, and you're going to sound like all those Muppets out there that are doing that. If there's any advice I can give you, is just You got into business hopefully to serve. If you're still in business to just make money, you're gonna fail, because the person that's actually in it to serve, because that's their mission, that's the reason they're on this planet, is gonna destroy you without even trying. They're not even gonna think about destroying, and they're gonna destroy you. If you're in an environment like this, that's why you started your business, right? So take that same passion and just platforms like LinkedIn, like Facebook, like Instagram, like Pinterest, they let us serve at scale, and at a scale where we can impact so many more people cheap or free. It's so incredible. And so I would say get out of the sales and marketing paradigm that I'm just doing this as content marketing. That's where everyone gets it so wrong. Go out to give, to serve, to help. Do that for 6 months, do that for 12 months, and you'll be on the cover of the magazine if you're any good. You know, that's the X factor. Your ideas actually have to be on point and resonate. But if you come from that space of service, you will disrupt your industry more than you could doing any other thing in your business. And I see that in my business, and I see it in our clients' business, and it happens fast. It happens fast. I would be really scared to have my entire business predicated on being able to outwit Mark Zuckerberg. That's scary, right? Because his agendas are not our agendas. To a degree they are, in the sense that Facebook wants engaging content, it wants valuable content, but Facebook doesn't actually care if it's good or not, it just wants people's attention, which is dangerous. Like, where that goes at the scale that Facebook is dangerous. One of the philosophies we have in our business, in our community, is products don't make money, product ecosystems make money. And when I say make money, I'm including make profit, which implies decrease risk, increases cut through and traction. So I think what you've got is a really powerful front end brand that 99.9% of businesses would dream of having. What we've built out as well is a back-end infrastructure of a variety of products and services with 5 different pipes. So we use social and ads on social and organic content on social as one pipeline. If you're only an online brand, it's harder to make use of referrals to a high-value product. It's harder to make use of an email database. It's harder to make use of just general kind of hustle, like one-to-one type hustle, because when I started, when I needed to, I could go out and have a meeting with you and have a cup of coffee and do a $20,000 deal. So my one-to-one hustle can be really valuable. I can have my BDM team and my sales team doing one-to-one hustle, so even if Facebook shuts down tomorrow, I still have a business. So the way we look at building influence, not just at a brand level, but at a business ecosystem level, is how to create a product ecosystem that lets us have channels of business coming from a variety of different forms. Everyone's running around, of course, talking about Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and all these things like they are the only way. And I think for people that are just getting into business at the moment, the thing that I'm really grateful for is the fact that, you know, I cut my teeth on picking up the phone and actually talking to people and saying, hey, I've spotted a problem that I think you might have. Can I talk to you about how I might be able to help you solve that problem? I made thousands and thousands of calls like that. In our first business, we were spending $250,000 a month on newspaper ads in Australia, like traditional old school marketing, and it was so inefficient. That's what forced us to get into actually creating good old-fashioned joint ventures and partnerships. I just did a whole series on Facebook Live about how to prepare for the coming recession. Can I just have a show of hands? Who here feels like the next 2 years is going to be fiscally tighter than the last 2 years? Can I have a show of hands? Who thinks that? If any of you guys think it's not, you're deluded. You need to look at the data, you need to look at the property market, you need to look at interest rates, you need to look at what Labor wants to do, you've got to look at what the Liberals are trying to do to compete it. Like, just do some research. Things are contracting. And when things contract like that, it blows out businesses that got really, really lazy. And I think by making sure that you've got strong deal flow through joint ventures and partnerships, through your own database, and of course through these channels like Facebook and Instagram where all this hype is kind of going on at the market, I think that's the most powerful way, where essentially it just buys you time to go, what is this new algorithm and how do we get around it? But it might take you 6 weeks. to buy that time and to solve the actual problem in terms of what is it looking for now. So I think the answer is a diversification of products and services, and the answer is a diversification of channels coming in, all of which are made so much more powerful and effective if you have a powerful, visible founder's brand, right? So again, if you, the founder, are showing up as the visible, valuable, connected influencer, you've got that nailed, then it's about how do you build out that back end as well. And if there was one thing to think about is what is the complete and remarkable solution? We'll often work with an example, Catherine Maslin, client of ours up in Brisbane, was a naturopath, burnout, doing lots of naturopathy, had a few people on the team, but selling her time as a naturopath for $150 an hour. Let's just think about $150 an hour. Okay, what are people getting for that? Well, you come in and I give you some naturopathy solutions, you know, some pills and some potions and some feedback on your liver and your gallbladder and your gut and all that kind of stuff. It's a kind of a functional transaction, which is why people would only kind of be willing to pay $100, $150 for that hour consult. Here's my question. Is that a complete and remarkable solution to that customer's problem? Think about it. If you go to a naturopath, why would you go to a naturopath in the first place? Because you're not feeling well, right? So let's say you're not feeling well, right? So let's say you're a successful woman with a career and a family and parents that are aging and complexity in your life, and you're trying to manage all those things, and you're feeling, 50% of your 100%. What are the ramifications and costs of you playing at 50%? It's pretty substantial. You're not able to give your family the attention, you're not able to give your romance the attention, you're not able to give your career the attention, you miss the promotion, you don't follow up on the client, like everything drops a level. And you go to someone who's going to charge you $150 an hour for that, for like, oh, I'll give you some potions. But at no point was Catherine, the naturopath, saying, I'm going to take you from 50% to 100%. Because if I came along as a naturopath and said, forget about pills and potions, that's not what we do. We're here to get you operating at 100%. Like, that's what we do. Because currently with Matthew, you're at 50%. So we're going to take you through a process, which is called our complete and remarkable solution. And we are not going to quit. We are going to do this. We are going to do that. We are going to work with you. We're going to keep you accountable. We're going to send you SMSs. We're going to change your food. We're going to clear out your kitchen. We're going to do everything it fucking takes to get you to 100%. Would you pay me more than $150 for that? Instantly you would. Because the costs of not having that are massive. So if you're selling something but you're not getting a high ticket value from, $150 an hour, coaching services, $1,000, for a day or this, that, and the other, the question that I'd love you to consider is put yourself in the customer's shoes. Get really present with their pain. Right? And the ramifications and the costs and the consequences and who else is affected by their pain and their problem. Get present with the full scope of the issue that they're dealing with, and then get to work on what else can you offer as a more complete and remarkable solution to solve all of that for them. And you're all in on that. My experience more than anything else is key people of influence, they don't just solve surface level problems, they actually transform things from the ground up. Like if you think of Simon Sinek, right? Start with why, right? It's not just a kitschy little TED talk he's got. Like when he goes into organizations, he changes their DNA and how they operate from the ground up, which is why they'll pay him $250,000 for a couple of days to come in and talk to their executive leadership to plant that seed. Does that make sense? He's not just a keynote speaker. So if you've got a great brand and profile, a lot of followers and a lot of engagement in that influencer sort of space, my brain would be going, how can you create a way deeper, like why are people following you in the first place? And how can you create a way deeper, way more complete solution? Because the reason they're following you is just the tip of the iceberg. Take them down the whole journey, and that's where you build not just a business that truly changes people's lives, but that's profitable, that's stable, that's truly influential. Here's the problem. If you're here resonating with anything I'm saying, it's likely that you have the capacity or already are the key person of influence. You're the visionary, you're the creative. You suck at managing the day-to-day, day in, day out, month in, month out, quarter in, quarter out. You get bored really easily. You love playing around with bright, shiny objects, big deals, new opportunities. Is that fair to say? Right? Okay. So, if that's true, You hate, in your soul, you hate the idea of niching, right? Because it pigeonholes you into this little thing, and it's like, but I want to do all the things. So the best advice I could give is your niche, and I recommend hyper niching to start with. Your niche is where you start, not where you finish. Your niche is where you start. So Amazon, their mission from the start was to be the world's general store, but they started with books. And they started with books for a very specific reason, is because they were easy to package, and for people that were there was a huge market for people that were more than 50 kilometers away from a bookstore. So they were very easy to target with this new internet thing. So cheap to acquire, cheap to deliver. Boom. Now, once they were known as the key person of influence, if you like, in the book space, they could then go up into all these different areas. So again, I can go back to Catherine. And by the way, the Catherine story, she ended up saying that she's going to get you well. She wrote the book called Get Well, Stay Well. And she created a $7,500 annual membership where they do everything all year, no limitation, whatever you need. She now has $1.8 million a year in recurring revenue just from those members. People signed up to that annual membership just as easily as they would normally sign up to the one-to-one, because it's a far more powerful value proposition. But she niched, just working in Brisbane. Now she's got that traction. She's on the front of the magazines. She's got the book. She's doing all those things. She's known. She's out of the business. And this is the key. Right? The moment you become the key person of influence, you become more valuable out of the business doing stuff like this than you are in the business managing shit like that. Now, the moment that happens, then and only then have you earned the right to expand your niche. And she's expanding her niche not with different products and services, but with different territories. So she's got a whole rural and regional campaign and a rollout, because top naturopaths don't want to go serve people in Ulladulla. Right? They just don't, or she does. And she's creating an incredible technology layer to be able to do that as well. So what I would say is, be the Annie Leibovitz of your space. Do one thing insanely well, right? And then once you are known at scale for that, because the thing is, you don't have a local market, you have a global market, right? So you could decide that I specialize in doing like sans serif fonts for logos that are super clean and elegant. You specialize in just making businesses look good with sans serif typography fonts, and you could have a very, very successful lifestyle business. You're not going to build a multi-million dollar, it's unlikely you're going to build a multi-million dollar, kind of empire with infrastructure like offices and all that sort of stuff. But to build a lifestyle business where you're cashed up, your family's cashed up, and that's just what you do because you do it so well, absolutely. But doing good work isn't enough. You've also got to do what we were talking about before, and getting your insights, your ideas around design. So instead of the mistake that I see a lot of designers and photographers and artists make is that they want the art to speak for itself. It doesn't. It won't. You go back and you look at the greatest artists in the world, the Picassos, they were promoters. They knew they had to be the brand that made their thing valuable. You look at Steve Jobs, right? He put his face next to this machine because no one knew what this machine was. No one knew how to use it. It was for geeks. It was for nerds. And he had to make it something people wanted. So your personal brand, your personal reputation is the missing link in being able to commercialize that micro niche to the level that you need. So there's incredible value in micro niches. You've just got to think thought leadership at scale, change the way people think first, cast a wide net so you can have the perfect people you want to work with just in that space. And then you get better at that than anyone else in the world, and you've won. The problem with the magazine, it's like a book. The problem with the book is I've got to make a significant decision to start trying to get this thing in my head. I've got to find a time, I've got to sit down, I've got to open it. It's not easy access these days. Twitter is easier access, Instagram is easier access, Facebook is easier access. This is a commitment to actually pick up the book and read this freaking thing. Magazine is a similar problem, right? They've actually got to sit down, open it, go through it. So I guess the question, I don't want to tell you to suck eggs, like to what degree are you decompartmentalizing that magazine and then spreading it across every platform. What people can watch, read, listen, do, longer form, shorter form, headline hooks, deeper insights, diagnostic tools, checklists that they can get involved with 24/7 based on reducing that friction of how they want to consume it, when they want to consume it, how much they want to consume it, to what degree are you giving people that full spectrum. So again, part of the problem that I think you could have with a magazine is that there's too much engineering that goes into it. And I think what you want to all consider getting better at is there's often this kind of misunderstanding that your audience has this expectation that anything you produce has to be of Apple quality, that it has to be polished and perfect. The irony is the opposite is true. Engagement comes from raw, vulnerable authenticity that's full of mistakes and errs and foibles, but still gets an interesting message across that they can use. Like, so long as there's a nugget of gold in there that's insightful for them based on where they're at, like, the quality doesn't matter. One way to think about it was like, if the magazine is the kind of top of the pyramid, you then want to think about how do we go volume and rawer, more raw, and just pumping it out and see what works. And I think not just you, but I think everyone will be shocked at how much engagement and response you get from the stuff that kind of makes you go, ooh, I'm not sure that's on brand. Because the reality is, if you're a small business, you don't have a brand, right? You're not Apple, you're not Uber. The little things you do don't actually affect your brand. What affects your brand is, are you serving your customers or not? Are you giving them breakthroughs or not? You can't screw up on social media. You can't post the wrong thing if it's the wrong quality. When we launched the Key Person of Influence book, we would have people sending it back with 100 spelling mistakes identified, 100 spelling mistakes. But we were already doing 3.2 million in revenue off the back of the program that the book promoted, riddled with spelling mistakes. And we're like, well, at least we know people are engaging with it, right? So prolific beats perfect. Reduce the friction between you and your customer and stop making judgments in terms of what they want to consume. Give them short form, punchy little headline insights, because a headline is a value proposition in and of itself. You can communicate an idea in that, it's called a quote, right? All the way up to a longer form article, a deep dive magazine, a book, anything of that nature. Try and develop the whole spectrum across watch, read, listen, do, and see what happens. So the question was, we're starting to see personal brands becoming more important than company brands. I would actually say that's not true. The founder's brand has always been more important than the company brand. In fact, it's the thing that built the company brand. There are three types of brand you want to be thinking about. There's the company's brand, Apple. There's the product brand, iPad. And then there is the founder's brand, or the owner's brand, whatever it is, which I'm going to say is Steve Jobs. Now, who did we buy from? People. We buy from people we know, like, and trust, right? We don't buy from faceless, logoed businesses unless they've been around for 50 years and they've proven their salt, right? So we see these logo businesses like Jeep, right? Now, like Apple, right? Like General Electric. Does anyone know how GE started? It was Edison Electric, which was Thomas Edison, who was the Elon Musk of the day, right? So Tesla, we don't think of Tesla, we think of Elon Musk, right? Tesla would not be Tesla but for Elon Musk and his vision, his mission, his purpose, his values. I'm convinced he's an artificial robot built by Google, where they're going to go, yeah, we've been testing a little Elon bot for a few years. I go back to Steve Jobs. Like, it was his founder's brand that made that company. If it was, with the greatest respect to Woz, right? If it was Wozniak trying to build the business from behind the scenes, building an incredible product or service, but as a non-communicator focusing on the value of the product, would it have worked?